Good afternoon, everybody. We are now live on Blue Table Talk. I'm your girl, Deborah Jones. So tonight we're going to talk with Chelsie Ramos. She's a candidate for the Judicial District Judge. Did I say it right?
That's right. Got it. That's a mouthful, isn't it?
Right. And my tongue will get all tied and twisted, so I might just say JDJ or JDC or whatever. Anyway, so we have her on tonight, but before I really introduce her, it is now early voting time. We 2 days into early voting, so I know you have been out there already voted, and if you haven't, I know you need to study that ballot before you go out there and know who you're going to vote for. It's easy. A lot of people trying to scare you because we have a new system. A lot of people trying to scare you about the system. Don't worry about it. It's easy. Just go in there, give them like we've always done. Give them your credentials, your license, or your little card. Yeah, and go ahead and vote. Get out there and vote. It's just as easy as taking candy from a baby. And know that if you don't vote, this is your right. You have that right to vote. And if you don't vote, you can't say anything about who's in office or whatever. But we want you to vote. We want you to go to your neighbors. We want you to go down the street, pick up that person who needs a ride, or else go and let them know that, hey, it's early voting time. Early voting started yesterday, and we're going all the way through November 4th. So that's early voting. Then we have election day, which is Tuesday, November 8th. So you have a lot of times. You have a lot of time to go out there and know about what you need to do and go vote. I know you've seen all the signs in the yards, all the signs in the street as you go anywhere, shopping, whatever you see signs of people who you are going to choose to vote for. Excuse me, y'all. And let me tell you about the times. Monday through Friday, October 24th through 28th. The polls are open from 8 to 5. October 29th, which is a Saturday, the poll is open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And October 30th, which is a Sunday, and it will be from the pew to the poll. So that pew church to the poll. The poll will open from 12 o'clock noon until 6 o'clock p.m. Then the following week, which will be next week, the polls Monday through Friday, October 31st through November 4th, the polls will be open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. You have no excuse, none, to go out there and choose the right person who is deserving of the job, and choose that person and go and vote. So tonight we have with us, we're gonna talk to, because I need your questions, y'all. I need your questions on here, and so you can ask Chelsie about what's going on with her. And so we have Chelsie Ramos. She's running for 317th Judicial District Judge right here in Jefferson County. And so we're going to talk to her right now. So hi, Chelsie. How are you doing tonight?
Thank you so much for having me on.
I'm
tired. I'm windburnt. I'm sunburnt. My body aches, but I think that's where I'm supposed to be at this point. We've been working so hard with block walking and working the polls for 2 straight days. So I think I'm exactly the way I'm supposed to feel.
Oh yeah. And y'all excuse me with my hat on because this is like a bad hair day.
Yeah.
So excuse me with that, but don't worry about it because sometimes I be trying to look cute, and I think I look cute tonight.
I'm so glad you didn't make me feel bad about mine. It was so wet outside. So
but I know you out there doing your thing. So hey, it's all good. It's all good. So look, if you're already on the phone and you need to transfer over to my comment section so you can tell Chelsie hello, and we're gonna get ready for these questions that we're gonna give her. So Chelsie, tell us a little bit about yourself, because I know a lot of people out there don't know who Chelsie Ramos is, and they need to vote. They want to vote for you, but don't know who you are. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, thank you. And that is the most important question. When you go to vote, you should know who you're voting for.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, you should have had some interaction with that person, so that way you have confidence in your vote and you know that you're voting for the right person. I'm from here, born and raised in Southeast Texas. I went to law school in Houston, got a law degree, got married, I had children. and I was appointed as a family court judge in Harris County and served for 4 years there in the same district court that I'm running for now as a family court. I had over 2,000 cases on my docket each year that I was there for 4 consecutive years. So I had a really good training ground on how to run a family law court and how to run a docket. Um, and I was also had an anonymous poll that was taken from all the lawyers that practiced in my court when I was a judge. And each time that the bar poll was given in each category as to what would make a good judge, and I think there were like 6 categories, I was always ranked every year in every category the highest possible score. So it says a lot to me that my colleagues and the lawyers that practiced in my court felt that I was fair, efficient with their time, knowledgeable, etc. And I loved the job. I found out I really loved it. The last year that I was on the bench, I ended up going through my own divorce. So I have personal experience in a family law matter. And I think that's what makes me the most uniquely qualified for family court judge here in Jefferson County. After that divorce, it was a very fortuitous time in my life. I had, to come back home to my family here and, have that family support and have faith again back in my children's lives and my life and recenter and refocus on giving them the same childhood and upbringing that I had when I grew up here in Southeast Texas. So, that's who I am as a person. I have the legal experience for over 20 years. I've only exclusively practiced family law for over 20 years. I have the judicial family bench experience and the personal experience.
So, what really enticed you to run for the judicial district judge, and why are you running? I mean, I heard you said that you did it in Houston, right?
Right, but I was appointed for that position.
Hmm.
So that was more of a job interview.
Okay.
And so running for family court is a whole different experience. I probably didn't fully know what I've signed up for on the political side and on the, campaigning side. Um, but I really felt it was important for me to run for this position at this point because I think God has prepared me along the way through all of the experiences that I've been through and the timing. God's timing is always so perfect. And with his timing for me to be home and be here and been practicing back in Jefferson County at about the same time that Judge Larry Thorne is retiring and leaving a vacant seat for this position. I'm called to serve again. And when I served previously as a family court judge, I didn't have the personal experience that came after I left the bench, or as I was leaving, and I just have a whole new empathy and a whole new understanding of what somebody really needs, from a family court judge when they're going through a family law matter. I thought I was an expert in family law with all the judicial and legal experience I had. I thought I understood divorce and child custody and mental health issues and stuff. I thought I did. I really thought I had it on paper. I had it all down. But until I experienced,
Hmm.
those issues in my own personal life, I think that I would definitely have a better understanding and be an even better family court judge than I was before.
Right, right. So, what's the role? What really is the role of a family judge?
It's a good question. We hear cases that have to do with divorce, child custody, child support, adoptions, CPS, juvenile court, any cases revolving around families and children.
Hmm.
And the cases here the court in Jefferson County, they have about 1,500 cases on the docket. So I'm used to running about 2,000. So this case is this docket is definitely manageable. Um, and what we do is listen to the evidence on each of these issues and we make rulings. We are judges and, sign court orders that protect children in CPS matters or protect children when a restraining order needs to be issued. We enforce child support orders. So I do have the ability to incarcerate either parent if they're not following a divorce decree or a court order. If one parent's not paying child support, they can be held in contempt and can go to jail. If one parent is not following the possession order and denying another parent their visitation, that parent can also be held in contempt and go to court and go to jail. Excuse me. So this court has a quasi-criminal component with that enforcement and contempt docket.
Wow. Wow. Do you consider yourself a politician?
No.
You hear about all this judge stuff and everything. So you think, oh, well, that might be a politician. I want to run for something else,
Yeah.
So, but so how would you ensure a mediation between family members and remain calm?
How do I assure what now?
The family member remain calm.
Yeah, that comes in a courtroom setting. That comes from the judge. It comes from the top down. I think that if the judge has very good judicial temperament, which I practiced, and I made sure that I was genuinely connected, listening, engaged, but also kept order, and calm voices. I think that's the best way for parents who are in a situation or a husband and wife going through divorce to feel like they've had a fair process. I've been in front of judges who, were very quick tempered, quick to anger, wouldn't let me finish a sentence, would cut me off or cut my client off, jump to conclusions, made angry rulings. And in family court, it can devastate lives, and it's not appropriate, and it's definitely not the way that I handle and conduct myself when I'm on the bench.
Right. Well, give me an example of when you demonstrated excellent listening skills. What was the situation? How did your listening skills improve the situation?
Well, every case, usually in family court, is very emotional. You're talking about somebody standing there pleading with a judge about their most prized possessions. It's their children or their retirement that they've worked so hard for, or their homes that they've built, the money in their bank accounts that they've worked so hard for, and the relationships, a husband and wife relationship, or a parent and a child. So those cases are really always very emotional. Some of the ones that I recall the most are usually in CPS cases because their parental rights are at stake. You're not talking about whether a parent is going to see their child on a Tuesday night or a Wednesday night. We're saying, hey, this parent may never or will never see their child ever again. And, I have to talk with those lawyers and those parties sometimes about how delicate that issue is, and explain to them that if there's somewhere in the law, I'm looking at a family code, I'm looking at the statute, if there's something here that you can point to that can help me help you, I'll do it. That's what I'm here for. And we can take a break. We'll take a recess. Some of these decisions don't have to be made so quickly and so knee jerk. They're important, and they need to be done correctly.
Right. And that is so devastating, especially when it comes with the family that has children, and that you're not involved in it. So with that being said, how would a family court judge make custody determination?
Good question. I didn't let you finish.
Oh, I'm finished.
Okay. How do we make a custody determination? Okay. Well, in a judicial role, you have blind justice, just like the lady with the scales of justice, and she has a wrap around her eyes. She's blind, and she has to listen to all the evidence and weigh that. There is a case, a Supreme Court case in Texas called the Hawley case, and there are some Hawley factors that the judge is to be aware of, and monitoring and watching for evidence on those factors to determine what is in the best interest of the child, and who should have custody. And I'm very familiar with those. I take very good notes when I'm listening as a judge. I think it's important. That's how I learned. That's just how I
Right.
listen. I take notes in church. It's just when I really need to pay attention to something. I take notes and I listen for those factors and
Mhm.
weighing the evidence. It's important to note also that I have been to judge school. Judges that are newly appointed or newly elected go to baby judge school, and I have attended, and I was certified, and we learn how much evidence truly comes in to these family law cases based on the objections that are made throughout the trial. So if I have one parent who is trying to offer into evidence something that they think is significant, say a report card about the children's grades or their truancy record, if that record doesn't come in properly, it could be kept out of evidence because it's hearsay
Mhm.
if it's not properly offered and authenticated. And in those situations, statistically, family court judges usually hear only about 40% of the actual evidence
Mhm.
in a case. And so you have a judge making very important decisions, but they're only hearing less than half of the facts and the evidence. And so you need a very experienced family court judge who can look at all of the totality of the circumstances and even weigh sometimes what evidence isn't there, because that's important as well.
Okay, so let me talk to my listening viewers for a minute. Hey guys, how are you tonight? Thank you for watching Blue Table Talk. Go ahead and hit that share button. Let everybody know that Chelsie Ramos is on. We are in our voting session right now, and so she's running for the 317th Judicial District Judge. So go ahead and hit that share button because as we all know, that sharing is caring. So hit that button. Let everybody know that Chelsie is on, and they need to know when they go into their ballot booth that they can know who to vote for. So let's go ahead and hit that button because Sharon is care. And if you have any questions, please put them on the screen. And I didn't see nobody come on here and tell us hi tonight, so I'm gonna tell y'all hi but I need y'all to come on here and tell me hi. All right, so let's go ahead and hit that button. Okay, Chelsea, we was talking about custody and everything. So when is it that a judge could interview a child? Because I know that's very delicate. And when can they interview a child about child custody? How
Good
old?
question. The law has changed a few times since I've been a practicing attorney. Currently, it's at the age of 12. When a child is 12 years old, if one parent requests or the court on their own motion can ask a 12-year-old or older what their desires are regarding a conservatorship situation, then the judge shall, it's mandatory.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have an option. They have to interview a child in chambers.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that doesn't mean necessarily that they're making a decision.
The child.
They just interview the child, yes, and supposed to weigh, the desires of the child with all the other evidence. And so there's a little bit of a misconception. I hear it all the time. Oh, my child is 12 years old. They want to live with me. So I know the law is that what they say, what they want, they get. Mm-hmm. And no, our legislature has not given over the power of custody cases to 12-year-olds. Thank goodness, because I do have a 12-year-old and I'm not sure she should be making any decisions.
I have a 34-year-old. I don't think she should make a decision either.
Yeah. She's very bright. Yes. But she doesn't have the life experience,
right.
to apply her opinions. And so, but, I think I am very considerate of their feelings. It's so long as those comments are genuine and they can express it and articulate their wishes in a way that's mature and that it hasn't been coached, by one of the parents. And I'm trained to talk to them in that setting. And I've been doing it for over 20 years as an attorney ad litem, as an amicus attorney, and I interviewed children in chambers when I was a judge before. And you definitely can, read into whether those opinions are theirs and belong to them, or if they've been coached by a parent.
Right, right. So what qualifies you to be a judge beyond your law degree?
You have to have a law degree, and you have to have practiced for 5 years, and you have to reside in the county that you're running in.
I see. Oh, can you describe the hardest case, the hardest family law case you had, and how did you handle it?
Oh gosh.
How was your case, huh? I'm just
Truthfully, yeah. My ex-husband struggled with mental issues and then that became substance abuse issues, and then ultimately a very violent domestic violence attack and assault on me. He was indicted with a felony, and I was standing before a family court judge for the first time, pleading, for help, for assistance for me and my girls, for a protective order and protection. And then ultimately, again, back in front of a family court judge, finalizing and getting a divorce. That was the most difficult thing I've ever been through. It was the most difficult family law case I've ever experienced and been through. I cried every day for about a year.
You're about to make me cry.
Yeah.
Because it's so devastating how people just go through stuff like that. You never know what people have gone, what a person has gone through. And now you got to stand in front of a judge to do this and do that. And so, but
Yeah. It's scary, and the urgency that I was feeling. I knew the process, and I knew that you don't just immediately ask the judge, you file a piece of paper and then something happens as soon as you file it. There is a process. There's, a due process. There's notice. You have to have a hearing date, and all of these things take time. But when you're living, that situation, the urgency is to have something done immediately. It's almost, I now can relate to it kind of like, oh, my child broke their wrist in a football game. You take them to the emergency room. They kind of set it in a temporary cast. But when the swelling goes down, then you go see the orthopedic surgeon, and then they assess the break and then they schedule it for surgery. And then that surgery is scheduled at some point, a couple days after that. So, it does take some time, to address this very serious situation. And I didn't realize that, that emotional delay until I experienced it myself.
Why does it take so long to get a divorce?
I know it shouldn't, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So in Texas, we have a statute that is nicknamed the cooling off period, or the waiting game. Once you file for divorce in Texas, you have to wait for 60 days before your divorce is finalized. The court cannot grant a divorce before that 60 days has expired, unless there's been family violence. That's the only exception. But I think the intent was that the legislators didn't want couples to get into an argument and run down to the courthouse, file for divorce, and get one the same day. I don't know why they picked 60 days. I don't know why that time frame seemed reasonable. But, there are a lot of divorces that still don't take place on the 61st day. They drag on. And they drag on for a year, or they drag on for 2 years. And I'll be honest with you, it's unnecessary.
Yeah.
There's no reason for that. There's a couple things that are going on there. Number one is the judge needs to be setting those cases on a dismissal or trial docket. After that 60-day time frame has passed, the lawyers and the parties need a notice mailed to them that says, hey, your case needs to be tried or needs to be dismissed in the next, for example, 120 days. Let's get this over with. It shouldn't sit around for a year or 2 years. And I say 120 days because by the Texas rules of civil procedure, you have to designate your experts. within 120 days from trial. And so then rebuttal experts have to be designated within 90 days from trial, depositions and other discovery done 60 days. So I think 120 days is the closest that I could send, a scheduling order. But, these situations, when they sit around, the emotions and the anger, it builds and it stews and it gets worse, and you see these stories on Dateline and 48 Hours and 2020 all the time of how domestic violence situations or a husband and a wife going through divorce end up in a very serious, sometimes even, unfortunately, death, a murder.
Exactly.
They don't want to be together anymore. They don't want to live in the same household anymore. And the longer that situation drags on, the more pressure. It's like living in a pressure cooker.
Mhm.
It's going to blow. And so I think the family court judge has a big responsibility for pushing those cases and getting them set and making them go. The lawyers also need that same push. Lawyers work on deadlines.
Mhm.
That's how we were trained. And so if you have a case that's sitting in your file cabinet that doesn't have a deadline, it doesn't have a trial setting, it's going to sit in the file cabinet and get addressed after the other case that does have a trial setting
Right.
that comes before it. And, that's just kind of the order of priority in a family law firm. That's how they handle those cases. So I'm very much looking forward to putting in an automatic docketing control order that lawyers and parties can count on and know, hey, there's going to be an end in this, and it's going to be a quicker end than they've been used to.
You got a little telepathy there, because I was getting ready to ask you, how do you prioritize your cases? So you already you already answered the question. So
The cases that have been on the docket the longest, they need to go. They
yeah.
need to be heard. Um, they need to be tried, or they need to be dismissed. And there are a lot of excuses sometimes that parties have or lawyers have, where, well, we're waiting on this house to sell, or, well, we're waiting on somebody to get health insurance in place, or we're waiting on, in those circumstances, we can listen to them on a case by case and see if a continuance or an extension is appropriate. But what I find is that both parents, both parties, they want it over with, because it's expensive to keep a lawyer on a retainer. And that's another invoice that's coming in every month that puts more pressure.
I've been divorced. I had 2 divorces. I've been divorced twice. So I'm understanding what you're saying. The second time I was like, hell, I need to divorce my lawyer, because it's taking him so long to to do whatever he needs to do. I need to divorce him. But
Yeah, but if the judge had set a trial setting, that lawyer would have had no choice but to push the case,
yeah.
get it finalized. Mhm.
What qualifications do you have to be a competent district court justice lawyer, judge?
Well, first of all, I've exclusively practiced family law for over 20 years. There are many areas of law that you can practice. You could, I guess, be a jack of all trades, sort of, but I'm specialized only in family law. I've never handled any other probate matter. I haven't handled a civil case. I haven't handled a criminal matter. So all of my experience has been in family law. I've also been a family court judge. So I have the judicial experience for 4 years of running a family court. I've been to judge school. I have received the certifications that Texas requires, the judiciary. Yes, here in Texas requires for me to be eligible and knowledgeable to handle cases. So I'm ready to jump on that bench as soon as I can, as soon as I'm sworn in here, and get to work. I don't have to go off and go to a judge school. I have my certification. I'm ready.
Do you see the difference between being appointed and running for an office? You see the
I see the difference for sure in initially, receiving the position, but it doesn't have any effect, not for me, and the way I would handle the position or in my rulings. I don't like a good old boy system. I don't think that there's any place for politics in families and in family court. In fact, just the discussions alone can destroy a lot of friendships and relationships. And, it's a hard topic to bring up. And unfortunately, people should be able to voice their views or practice, what their beliefs are. But in a family court situation, we all have the same goal, or we should, and that is protecting families, looking out for what's the best interest of a family. Even if that family is a divorced family, there's still a structure there that needs to be created that's workable and healthy.
Yeah. Wow. Let me go back to my listen audience again. Okay, guys, I see you out there, but I don't see you on this comment page, and so I need you to have me on the comment page so I can throw the questions over to Chelsie so you can ask her questions. We are now on day 2 of voting. So, guys, I know a lot of you have already voted, and if you haven't, go on out there and get your friends, get your neighbors, get your frenemies, everybody out there, and let's go out there and vote, because this is really, really, really serious. Your local voting issues are really serious. It's good to vote national. It's good to vote state. It's good to vote for anybody. But when it comes to your local, which they're going to be with us, you need to go ahead and ask some questions about it. And so we know who to vote for.
That's 100% right.
Go ahead, Chelsie.
No, you're 100% right, because the local positions here will affect directly the lives that are here on a grander scale and on a more daily basis, especially in family court. If you don't ever see yourself being in a family court position, but your children's friends that they play with, or those households that they go spend the night with, parents, yes, may have been involved in a family law matter. Your next door neighbors or your family members. We all have families. We all, a lot of us have children, and so these decisions do affect our lives. And I think you're right. Whatever your political positions are, whoever you support on a national or a state level, those policies are, more about border control or military, abortion. Those things don't play a part in the decisions, right? And yes, and what I'm running for, and for family district court. And our community is small enough that you should know who you're voting for. You should have these types of opportunities to engage and ask questions and know, their background and their temperament and their personality, and how they would handle this position. Judge Larry Thorne, who is retiring, and I'm running for his position. He's been in this seat for 24 years. And that's a generation and a half,
right,
that have gone through that court, and those decisions have affected, that generation and another, generation after that. So it's a very impactful vote, and it's hard to convince yourself that your one vote matters. You hardly ever see an election where it was won or lost by one vote. So I'm guilty of this. Hey, I just didn't make it to that, election, or that, that poll, and maybe it's just not going to be won or lost based on my one vote. But we individually, as an individual, can definitely impact the outcome of this election, my election, and others, because as an individual, 10 people, 20 people. And when you talk to them and you say, hey, I talked with this, candidate, and this is what she stood for, these are her qualifications, that is impacting another vote. And so each of us do have that civic duty to vote our own voice, but your voice is larger than that. And just like what you are doing with your podcast, you're sharing that voice with others. And, elections have been won and lost off of, 100 or 200 votes. And if 10 people are watching this and they take this to their 10 friends,
right,
you have impacted, the complete outcome. As an individual, you have impacted the outcome of this election, and it's vital. It's important.
I heard you say something earlier about child support. And if a person didn't pay their child support and they refuse to pay it, then that person will probably go to jail, right? So, given that issue of overcrowding prisons in Texas, would that affect your verdict?
Well, actually, yes, because when I was previously a family court judge, and we had those cases on Tuesdays, the contempt docket that I would hear, uh, our sheriff would say to us, "Hey, look, we only have one or two position seats, spots today," or, "Hey, we don't have any, we can't house any more inmates." Um, and so I became aware. Like I said, there's a learning curve. I used to assume that, hey, you haven't paid your child support, you're $3,000 behind, you're going to go to jail, and then your bond to get out of jail is your $3,000 that you owe and back child support, and problem solved. Well, then I had the sheriff telling me, hey, first of all, we don't have room for this nonsense. They're not a violent offender, and number two, um, they can't go to work, they can't pay their child support when they're sitting in jail. But number three, it cost about $7,000 to $8,000 to incarcerate an inmate, for a long weekend.
Yes.
So you're costing taxpayer dollars more money
Yeah.
than the child support that's owed. That math doesn't work. So I'm telling you that, the good thing is I got to cut my teeth on some of those cases when I worked previously as a family court judge for 4 years. I'm not going to tell you some of my strategy on how to handle those, because it was very effective, and completely, within the rules of the law. But essentially I look at my docket and I would say, oh, this guy or this girl, has 70 violations and owes 50 something $1,000, and they're not working. That's an example of one that, we could do a weekend jail. You can sentence them to weekends. They check in during the weekend and then they get out.
Mm-hmm.
And then, once that example is set at the beginning of the docket, then the rest of the cases kind of settle after that. Then they say, okay, this judge is going to follow the court order, is going to be, enforce it. And the same goes for visitation. There has been a long-standing culture where visitation violations have not typically ended up in incarceration or, a severe contempt. And it's a shame, because parents should be treated equally. If you're not going to follow a court order, for visitation, the punishment should be the same as for not paying your child support. Now, and contempt doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be incarcerated.
Right.
There, you could, a contempt finding, the other outcome, or I guess relief that could be granted, is attorney's fees be reimbursed. Sanctions can be ordered. If it's a visitation violation, I often granted makeup visitation for the dates of the violations. So if a parent purposely withheld a child for, say, a couple of weekends,
Mm-hmm.
then you give that other parent the makeup time that they lost, and order maybe a sanction, or a financial sanction, or attorney's fees. So there's definitely some things that an experienced family court judge would do to make sure that these orders are being enforced, fairly on both sides.
Someone posed a question to us, but they didn't come on the screen. It's on my phone, so I'm gonna read it to you. It's okay?
Okay, yeah.
She says, Pamela Jones says, as a family court judge, do you go into the homes and talk with families with kids and work with the parents and kids?
Good question. Not as a judge, no. But as a family lawyer, I have been always in home visits, and part of the home studies.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes, I go into those homes, and and experience those questions, and I'm part of that interview process and the inspections in the homes. But as a judge, no, I'm not permitted to go into the homes.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
and that's why it's important for the judge to, I would appoint very good attorneys in those roles, attorney ad litem or an amicus attorney who is responsible for those home visits, who will do a thorough job of reporting back to the court.
Right. I've never heard that before, but I
Yeah.
guess all
Oh,
things
I've been to some really interesting home visits. I've left with fleas all over my ankles. Yeah, I've been to homes where a big file cabinet in the dining room was a bunch of snakes.
are
The
you? Oh my
pets
God.
pet snakes. I've been to homes where a mobile home one time that had the whole back half of the mobile home had been crushed by a tree,
Mhm.
and it never was repaired. And they just had a shower curtain up from the part of the mobile home that had the damage from the rest of the home. People, we tend to sometimes live in a bubble,
Right.
and in the comforts of our own home, and be very blessed. But there are so many kids and families who do not have homes that are fit, or do not have good homes, that they struggle. And all kids want to go home,
Right.
even even if it has a shower curtain as a wall, and
Right.
a tree in the middle of the house, that's their home. And that's where they want to be. And so as a family court judge, it's important to give grace to those parents, know that we all as young parents go through hard times.
Mhm.
We all struggle and go through change. And my husband, I'm remarried, and my husband was part of the lockout at ExxonMobil for 10 months,
Right.
to no fault of his. He was
Right.
forced out of Exxon in a lockout. And those situations help you have even more empathy, for parents who are behind on their rent, get evicted. Now they're living in their car with their children. Well, does that mean that those children should belong to the CPS and belong to the state? Or do they just need a little bit of help, because they fell into a bad situation? And so I think that's, those are the judgment calls that a family court judge makes.
Mhm.
And
Excuse-
very impactful, very important.
Yes. Pamela Jones asked me, is she on the wrong page? No, Pam, you're not on the wrong page. You just need to come over to the comment section of the page and we'll be okay. But that's okay. I can read off my phone. Kathy Wingate wants to know, can someone sit on jail? So can someone sit in jail for the amount they owe for child support, or will they still have to pay when they get out?
Good question. In family court, for an enforcement case, a contempt of child support, the statute says that they can sit in jail for no more than 180 days. It's a 6-month sentence. So
Okay.
that's the maximum amount of time that they would be incarcerated. Uh, and there is no statute, there is no law that says that they get out of jail when they pay their back child support. I tend to, think that that's a good place to start. It just seems to make sense to me that that would be their bond, is the child support amount that's owed. But um, you have to decide that on a case by case basis. It can't always be that sum of money. If we can get them to pay half of what's owed, or a chunk of what's owed, and get them out of jail and get them back to work so they can pay the rest, that might make better sense.
What are the biggest changes you think we need to make to our judicial system?
I think it needs to be more efficient. There are a lot of lawyers that are stuck waiting for their cases to be called when they're standing in the hallways, or sometimes on Zoom court, and they're billing their clients for that time. There's a lot of waiting around time in the judicial system, so we need to be more efficient with the docket,
Mhm.
and have better time estimates on how long those cases will take and stick to those time estimates so the next case that's waiting in line to be tried isn't on hold for too long. I do think that we need more resources in family court, and I'm desperately looking for all the time resources that would help our children. The main one that I'm hyper focused on is supervised visitation programs. We don't have very good options or a lot of options for where visits should take place, when those children have to be supervised, when those visits need to be supervised. Say, for example, one parent has, um, a protective order entered against them, um, or they have domestic violence charges, sexual assault, case, etc. If it is appropriate for that child to have any visitation with the other parent, what type of setting, can we have those visits take place? And we don't really have a good option for that. So that's what I'm looking at as well.
Have you ever been in a situation where, as you are the judge, and you've seen this case, and I mean, it was just devastating to you? I mean, you just I don't think you probably cried then, but you probably cried when you went into the chambers, and so you felt empathy for that, for those, for the people, or the child, whatever. Have you ever been in that type of situation?
All the time, yes. And I take a break because I'm human. I am a person, and these cases are very difficult, and the facts are so. Uh, um, you know, I had one that stands out, and I'll just tell you a brief story just to kind of give you an example of what these cases look like. But I had a mother who was on the witness stand, and she had a translator, and she was African, and I didn't understand the exact tribe, the language that was being. I'm not bilingual anyway, but I didn't know the language, and the translator, and she was crying so hard, and she was so hurt, and she was in so much pain, but I didn't think that the translation was matching how hard, right, what she was saying. And so I got I just looked at the translator, and I said, look, I don't, there's no way what you're saying to me is matching what she's saying, because she's so hurt. And then there was a couple of other events, but finally what I learned was, in her particular husband's culture, they circumcise little girls, which means they cut their private parts.
Right. I'm hearing you.
And she didn't want him to have custody of her two little girls, and she didn't want him to have unsupervised visitation, because she knew that he was very strong in that belief and that he would do that to them, and she didn't want that to happen to her girls. And for me, as a mother of two girls, yes, I was fighting back every tear, and I was so thankful that God gave me the intuition to say, what he's saying, what he's translating is not what she's upset about. It's not the same thing. And to push, because I think that another judge or somebody else might have not pushed on that issue and maybe made a bad decision. And so those are the sort of facts, and evidence that we hear, and it's important, to get that right.
Were you, as a judicial court judge, will you adhere to the U.S., United States, and Texas Constitution and make verdicts based upon precedents set by the Texas and the United States Supreme Court?
I have to, I have to take the oath to uphold all laws of the United States and of the state of Texas as a judge. Now, that being said, in family court, we have broad discretion on making decisions about what's in the best interest of children.
Mm-hmm.
And those were the Holly factors that I mentioned before. Right. There's numerous factors. And so, this position gives the judge a broad discretion, can make a lot of decisions in a broad range. There's not a lot of easy cut calls, you know.
Yeah. You touched me tonight. Chelsie. You touched me tonight. I met you. When did I met
At Nell's.
at
Was it Nell's place? We were
it was Nell, but I met you at Cathedral Faith first.
first.
Yeah, I met you at Cathedral Faith at the forum. Then we was at Mel. We talked at Mel, and and each time I spoke with you. You just had my heart bleeding. But I know you can feel the presence of you. You can feel the truthfulness in you. You can feel the how you feel about people in you. So with that being said, you have another opponent running against you. So why should I vote for Chelsie Ramos for the 317th Judicial District Court Judge? I'm sorry.
Well,
why should I vote for you?
I am the only candidate that has all of the experience that our county needs, the legal, the judicial, and the personal experience. But I think you said it right. It's my heart. I mean, it comes down to good common sense, and I have that maternal instinct. I am a mother. I pay attention to detail. I'm very engaged. I have a keen sense of, reading a room and feeling, what issues or problems might be going on instead of just getting caught up, in a legal argument. And so I absolutely feel like I'm the best fit for this position. I went to a seminar a long time ago, and for the state bar, and we had a psychologist who came and spoke to us and did a little exercise about how to read your jurors and what our jury people. And anyway, he did a little exercise that has stuck with me, and I kind of want to do it with you and your listeners, if you wouldn't mind.
Right.
So he says, think of the two most influential people that you have in your life or have had in your lifetime. You don't say their names, but just in your head, they should come to you pretty quickly. The two people that have meant the most to you in your life and been, the most of an influence. And then pick one adjective, one word to describe each of them. So I'll give you a minute to think about that.
Well, it's going to be my children. I have a son and a daughter, so
okay.
I don't have to mention their name because most people here already know the names. But
do you have one word to describe each of them?
Yeah. My daughter, she's
one word's hard.
Wait, hold on. Brilliant. Son, they're both brilliant. So they let me see, what's a good word can I describe? Let me see. He's very motivating.
Okay. So you know what the psychologist told me? He said, that's who your true authentic self is. That's your person. That's your heart. So brilliant and motivating. That's you.
That's me.
That's you. Isn't that neat? Yeah. That's you. So mine was, when I did this exercise years ago, it was my parents. And my dad is hardworking, very, very hard worker. And my mom is very maternal. She's like a Mother Teresa. I mean, if there was ever the model mother, it would be her. So it's, for me, I'm a hardworking mother. And that's what a family court judge should be, a very nurturing, maternal, but hardworking, judge. And so that's, and I'm not biased to mothers. I'm just, I'm a parent, I guess.
Right. So let me. I'm looking at the my viewers on my phone because they didn't come on the comment page. So I'm looking at the phone. So one lady who really knows me, and she would, she's around my children's age. She said my daughter is strong, and my son is a protector, and yeah, and he definitely is a protector, man. I mean, if I go out and get a boyfriend today, he won't. That ain't happening.
Dang it. All right.
Boy, get out of my way. But yeah, that they said the same thing. So one person would like to know, would you be able to separate personal experience from judicial fairness.
Absolutely. Yes. And you know what? It helped it helps me to have the personal experience to understand the other side because I lived it. I'll tell you, I'll be honest with you. My ex-husband, he had issues. He had mental health issues and substance abuse issues, and
Right.
but I understand them. I know why. He moved here. He was an immigrant. He came from Cuba. He was 9 years old. He didn't speak the language. He didn't know the food. He didn't know the culture. It was a very, very, very hard shock to his system as a 9-year old. And with that, they moved to very poor neighborhood in New Jersey. And
Mhm.
his parents came from a communist country. When they moved here, they came with just their clothes on their back. He had a hard childhood, a very hard life. And I don't excuse those behaviors, but I think what makes me a fair judge in my personal experience is to understand why those issues were happening and what kind of help really needed to take place. So I don't think that my personal experience makes me um, pro mom and against dad and and punish family violence to the hardest degree because I was the survivor of that. I think what my personal experience helps me and to see and know and understand. I lived
Mhm.
his side too, of the pressure cooker that we were living in.
Right. Right.
Mhm.
I am a former educator, and so I know what children and what they go through. I've seen it all. I've heard it all. Just one day I had to counsel one of the students at the school because yeah, she just walked in the room just like I'm mad at the world. And so I'm like, what's going on? You're not speaking, you're not saying anything, nothing. But then when I took her out the classroom and talked with her, I'm like, I just saw her stand there and cry because you never know what
Right.
these children are going through.
Right. You got to give them that time, and parents too.
Give
You
that
know, their pride. The parents are worse because their pride gets in the way, and they
time.
don't want to admit, that they're feeling a hard time. They don't want to admit they've done something wrong, and we're all human. We're all making mistakes. But it shouldn't identify who you are or label you forever. It's like I say, if you're speeding and you get a speeding ticket, well, okay, yes, that's what happens when you're going 80 miles an hour and you're only supposed to go 50 miles an hour. You're respectful to the police officer who, is trying to keep our streets safe. You say, "Sir, I'm sorry, I was speeding. I'll take my ticket and, I'll move on." And we need to be that is the culture that I want in family court is, hey, look, I made a mistake, I made a bad parenting decision, but I know that I did something that wasn't appropriate, wasn't healthy for my family, but this is what I'm going to do to give you the reassurance that we won't have that problem again.
Right, right, right. I so appreciate you coming on the show tonight,
Okay.
Chelsea. And I like viewers, I like to tell you that we are in voting section right now. This is the second day of early voting. If you have not voted, go out there and vote. You have this week, the rest of this week, I mean the whole rest of this week and next week. So to go and vote. So go out there and vote. Show us that you care. And this is local. So like we said earlier, this is the hardest part. This is your local. This is going to tell the whole story. So go out there and vote. And Chelsea, would you like to do before you leave us with your final word? Veronica said earlier, if I can get back to her, Veronica said, "Thank you for all you do. We appreciate you."
Mm.
So we appreciate you too as well. I appreciate everyone who came on tonight uh, and said something. One more question there. Will you continue to be a true Democrat after election?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. That's, our Democratic Party really embraces family court and the services that are needed, especially court appointed attorneys.
Mm-hmm.
And that platform to me seems the most appropriate, the most fitting for family court for sure.
Right, right. So would that be your last word you want to say tonight, or you want to say something else before we go off?
You covered everything. You did so good. I really enjoyed talking with you.
I did too. It was fun. It was fun, and good luck with your election period. And hey, keep going out there and do what you need to do. And tell those children, I said, hey.
I'm looking at my door. I know they're ready for some dinner, so
I'm about to go in here and do something to my puppy because he's been barking all night.
Hey, they threatened. They're like, hey, we're gonna call CPS. I'm like, okay. They don't want you.
Yep. Appreciate you. God bless you in this race. And hey, may the best person.
Ride and vote.
Vote, y'all.
Bye, y'all.
Bye. Bye, Chelsie.
Bye.